Hello and welcome to yet another chess analysis video. Today let's have a look at an interesting tactical game played between Viswanathan Anand and the legendary grandmaster from Russia Garry Kasparov. So today's game is from the Tilburg tournament from the year 1991, and Anand was a well-known player in the elite circuit, and Kasparov was at that time at the peak of his career. So without further ado, let's have a look at the game. So playing with the white pieces, Anand goes for e4 and c5 replies Garry. It's a Sicilian defense. Knight to f and d6. Now d4 and c takes d4 and knight takes d4. Now knight to f6, knight to c3 and a6. Now f4 and e6. So now we are having a Sicilian Shevnijin Matanovich attack game on the board. So bishop to d3 by Anand, preparing for castling on the king side. So knight b d7, continuing with the development. So here Anand castles on the king side. Now queen to b6, attacking the knight on d4. So here Anand decides to give up a pawn and support the knight with bishop to e3. So here Kasparov readily accepts the offer and he takes a queen into b2, attacking the knight. And here Anand plays a brilliant move. It's a tactical move, and Anand came very well prepared to take on Kasparov. So what he plays here is knight d to b5. It's a very tactical move with a clear idea of playing knight to c7 and give a check, and at the same time attack the rook on a8. So here Anand is offering a knight for a pawn. So Kasparov accepts the offer and he plays a into a b5 and knight into b5. Here again the threat is knight to c7. So in reply Garry plays rook to a5, the knight, rook into b5, bishop into b5 and queen into b5 is what Garry is planning. So Anand plays a rook to b, attacking the queen on b2, at the same time supporting the bishop, the knight on b5. So here Garry decide to give up his queen for a rook. So Garry plays a rook into b5 and Anand accepts the offer, a rook into b2 and a rook into b2. So here Garry wins a knight and a rook for his queen, and here Anand plays queen to a1, attacking the rook on b2. So Garry plays a rook to b6 and Garry has no option but to give up his here Garry wants to trade his rook for a bishop, so he plays rook to b6 and bishop into b6 and a knight into b6. Now queen to c3 with an idea of playing queen c7 and attack the knight, and at the same time attack the bishop on c8. So bishop to e7. Here Garry preparing to develop his pieces and maybe for to castle. So here a rook to b1, attacking. So Garry plays knight f to d7, comes in support of the b6 knight, but Garry gives up a pawn. Here Anand takes the pawn on g7, queen into g7, and with an attack on rook on h8, the bishop comes in rescue with bishop to f6, attacking the queen, at the same time supporting the rook. So here Anand plays queen to h6 and king to e7, and now bishop to b5, and here Garry plays rook to g8. Now rook to d1 with an idea of playing e5. So Garry stops that with e5. Now f5, capturing the e6 square. Now knight to c5, attacking the e4 pawn, and here Anand decide to give up his rook. So here rook into d6. If Gary plays king into d6, then queen into f6. So in reply to rook into d6, Gary plays bishop to g5, attacking the queen. Now queen into h7, attacking the rook. Anand's rook is hanging on d6. So here Gary goes for knight into e4, attacking the rook. Gary gives up his knight also. Rook into b6, and now rook to d8, with an idea of playing rook to d1 check. So here Anand plays a bishop to d3, stopping rook from playing a rook to d1 check. Gary plays a bishop to e3 check with a double attack. Now Anand will lose the rook on b6 after king moves. So king moves to f1 and bishop into d6. Still the position is in favor of Anand, because Anand takes the knight. He wins the knight for a rook, bishop into e4, and now rook to d4, and after that c3. So it was in this position on move 29 that Gary resigned the game, because if Gary plays rook into e4, then f is check and the queen will take the rook. Anyways, even though white can win the game easily by promoting the kingside pawns, so it was a brilliant tactical win for Viswanathan Anand over Gary Kasparov. As we all know that Gary is a wonderful tactical player, so it was an awesome victory, very brilliant tactical victory for Anand over Kasparov. So this game is a wonderful game for students to follow and learn how to play tactical games. So hope you all enjoyed the game, and stay tuned for more chess analysis videos. Have a nice day and take care.